Speaker for today, Garen Ewbank of Ewbank Testing.
Well, I'm kind of like Mark. I'm going to be roaming around too. All right. Congratulate Kyla. She's a newly minted CEM. All right.
It's on the card.
Yeah. Okay. And the Association of Energy Engineers, I'm actually representing them this afternoon. I want you to know that. All right. So we're going to be talking about some stuff, and hopefully that'll help us move some things forward. But there's a whole lot of synergy going on in the state of Oklahoma right now. A lot. I'll get into some of that. Rick, we're working with Canada, Spain, Australia, and Mexico to develop some regional training centers and some international chapters to further what we've been trying to do, to answer your question. All right. Anybody know what happened to gas deliveries in the United States last winter?
Yes. Propane, you mean?
No, natural gas.
Natural gas.
You were within 24 hours of being without natural gas.
Right.
Do you understand that? Because they haven't built out a new infrastructure for the distribution. Distribution is regulated, the supply is not. The little fact not a lot of people know, this close. And we're headed to a winter that's very similar.
Here, and I have to say a point on that. As a generation company, we saw the price of natural gas during that interval of time go from $4.50 an M to $45 an M. Think about what it was costing to generate power through that time frame. And we're headed to a location that will be closing down coal plants and forcing more gas to flow through the pipe that are not adequate now.
That are not adequate now, yes.
There's supply and demand.
That's my point. Thank you, all right. What's going to happen to electric rates over the next 3 to 5 years? Anybody know?
Unfortunately.
All right. Then the southeast of the United States, their cooperative association got together and they were told to be planning and preparing for 30 to 40% increase. Okay. And I'm going to talk about why some of those things are happening. But back on the training, I think we at IGSHPA should develop an ABET type accreditation for installers. We go out, they pay for it. We go out, we measure it, we see what they're doing, we make sure that they go through the metrics and that they're doing things properly. Okay, much like we do our ABET here at the university. So, what am I going to talk about? This big overview. What the heck's the third industrial revolution? Has anybody heard about that? Raise your hands. No. Well, it's underway. It's underway in the United States and it's underway in Europe. Renewables in Europe and the ability to use the Internet of Things starting to change what's happening. Their model is a little bit different than the model that we're going to be in, and I'm going to talk about what those two models look like. But mainly I'm going to aim at what we're going to do here in the United States as we go through this. If it makes any sense, we'll see. All right. This is what we've been doing in the past. Oh, man. Yeah, well. So, the first chapter in this story I'm going to tell you is the engineer's explanation. And I'm going to use the big picture to do that, and hopefully it'll make sense as we go through this. All right. This is what we do. This is how we talk. Isn't it? Well, no wonder people don't know what the heck we're trying to say. So I'm going to change the language a little bit as we go through this. And that's really some pretty good stuff there if you really get in the middle of it. But anyway, we are only talking about heat, energy. And that's what we need to focus on as we move forward. This is a big map of what energies are used in the various market segments. And in this, I want to focus on the residential and the commercial energies that are used. This is a house, and this is the power plant. Look at that big change from the house to the power plant. We have a 3.23 increase because of the Carnot cycle of the fuel going into the power plant to what's actually delivered to the home. No wonder the EPA and everybody else is after the power plants. We're the only industry that suffers that type of a loss electrically, all right? So, and this is, some EIA stuff. In a home, a little over 65% of the energy is in the form of BTUs. We don't need to worry about the solar. We don't need to worry about the wind. We need to worry about the BTUs. That's the big kahuna. That's the big thing in the room. That's the thing that we can affect the quickest and the best. And we can help people with that. That's our market. 65%. That's in the United States. That's pretty big, isn't it? Commercially, it's 60% for space conditioning, domestic hot water heating. Again, that's the big kahuna. You know, the solar guys and all them can worry about this over here. We at IGSHPA and at Oklahoma State University probably should be worrying about this 60%. All right, don't get too far into this right here. And maybe you've seen this. This is the way energy flows through our systems. And I'm going to propose that we think about not the third industrial revolution, but the second great electrification of the United States. We can be a major part of that. You're going to have to take pictures. This will be downloaded. It's on SlideShare now. Okay? So look at how these energies flow. What would happen if all of this here started going through here? Anybody see a fight maybe developing? Yeah. Well, that's my intent. So let's look at this 11.4 quadrillion BTUs, and I don't know how to explain the size of that to anybody. That is such a gigantic number. Residentially, and 8.59 commercially. So, what are power and electric utilities really good at? Managing energy. It's not generation. Managing energy. That's your core business. What do customers want from you guys? How to implement energy systems that are efficient and use less energy. They want to cut costs. Homeowners do, businesses do. Well, maybe we ought to get in the middle of that. And I'm citing Jeremy Rifkin. He's the author of The Third Industrial Revolution. If you want to get that book, it's a really good read. Right? He's got a number of others, but this is the one I would recommend. All right. So, what would this look like if ground source heat pumps and ground heat exchangers were used to meet all the space conditioning and water heating markets in residential and commercial markets? Well, I can get through all this stuff, but you can see that there's some big changes. Kind of get to here. You've got an opportunity. Residentially, you go up from that 4.75 to 5.48. We use more electricity. Commercially, we go slightly down, all right? But, only a tenth of a quad. So it's a real opportunity for electric utilities. By switching to renewables, we can't compete. We can't go switch people, electric to gas and gas electric. That's a timeout with our public utility commissions, mostly throughout the United States, but particularly here in Oklahoma also. All right. But these utilities could really increase some market share, revenue, reduce CO2 and particulate emissions, couldn't they? If we use ground source. Do we all believe that? Okay, but we haven't done a good job of explaining that. Back to your points. All right. So let's move on through. And if we did that, that does not address the reduction in the rejected energy, FERC 745, EPA, Haze or Clean Air, and Rule 111D. Does it? We've got some big leverage right over here. Ground source does. And notice I separated ground source from the heat pumps and the ground heat exchanger. We've got some really big leverage, and I want to head there. Wow. The utilities today, Wall Street's hammering them because they're losing market share growth to solar, wind, other things. And Their CEOs are responsible for the quarterly report, so they have to talk about that all the time. Luckily, you guys have a little bit different deal because you're cooperative. However, you're still subject to the similar pressures, all right? And here in Oklahoma, we had a Senate Bill 1456 that says if you put solar panels on your house and generate electricity, you're going to have to pay the utility a tariff, Mr. Homeowner. So people like Solar City probably won't be coming to Oklahoma. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? You know, I'm okay with sharing the cost properly, but he was showing us that we don't necessarily have to do that. We can share that cost back with our industry in a really effective manner. All right. Now, I probably won't go there, but so where's it taking us? That is the shipments from Energy Star on ground source heat pumps, 2007 to 2013. Anybody see anything wrong with that picture? Yeah, we are headed downhill. We got to change something, people. And now's the time to do it. Kylie, you're exactly right. We have the opportunity. Yeah, we can do it. That's kind of scary, isn't it? We're seeing it in the membership at IGSHPA also, just like that. At OSU OKC, I think I taught like 300 people and got them accredited as installers a couple of years ago. Did a lot of work down there. So we are trying to help the industry, but man, even with that, we're still getting this going on. So the second chapter of my little story, I'm going to call it Positioning and Marketing for the Ground Source Industry, and it's going to rely on advocacy in a very strong way, in a very strong manner. If we can get that accreditation for those people out there that are installing it, we'll take your issues away, right? Okay. So what's this advocacy? What is it going to look like? I don't know. Right now, first cost is our barrier, and currently only people that are capable purchase ground source systems. Okay, everybody has a ground source system in their home. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. Okay, we need to do better than that. Right? Because we were capable. All right. How do we make it affordable? And by affordable, I don't mean the cheapest. I mean the least expensive. And we really got to understand life cycle costing to do it. But how do people with a modest income, those 3-ton systems that are out there in mass, all right, how do they get our systems? Well, I'm going to propose it's third-party financing, which breaks the first cost barrier. There are ways to do that. And maybe we need to get a new business model for our industry. We can do the math. We can do the carbon reductions. But maybe we need a new business model. And that business model is going to be around that third-party financing. All right. So I'm going to show you a little example up here and see if you would invest. And then I want to ask the heat pump manufacturers, have they used their federal tax dollars to invest in ground heat exchangers? What about the 401s that their employees have? What about the 401s that our university employees have? Where's that going? It's going straight to Wall Street. There's tons of money out there. We're just not going after it. And we might have something that the people might really want to invest in. So, you can read through that. Don't spend too much time on it. But this is how you would have to do it if you were going to, as a third party, capture the tax credits on systems as a third party owner. And particularly, first, you got to have an easement of record. Secondly, a contract that allows us to get into that ownership over time. That's what you've got, you know, similar deals. And then we're going to have to provide a power purchase agreement to continue the thing on, to hold that. So that's kind of complicated, isn't it? Yeah, it is. All right. Here's what we've done. Here's where we're going to go. We have lots of options out here if we want to go to that. And by the way, PACE financing is back on the horizon because the FHFA has now backed off their deal where they wouldn't allow you to have a tax lien on the property. Anyway, we're going to go into some really interesting things with these two deals here. Actually, these three. Thermal services agreements, power purchase agreements, limited partnerships, master limited partnerships, REITs. REITs can now use a ground source system. We don't have to do anything because it's a part of the facility. Master limited partnership to get tax advantages like oil and gas, we're probably not going to get that right now, but we will before very long. All right. So here's the plan. This is what I'm proposing. This is where I'm going. We're going to differentiate between capable and affordable, and forget about best. We already know where that. We're going after that 60, 65% of the market anyway. How long have we been pushing this deal? When we had our exit conference in Tulsa in 2008, it's when I started. Okay, it's been a long uphill battle. But I think we're getting some traction now. But we're going to position the ground heat exchanger as earth storage. The best of all batteries. So Tesla can build some really fancy batteries and all that stuff. Or, little sidebar here. Do you guys know who the largest water rights owner is in the United States of America?
T. Boone Pickens.
T. Boone Pickens. Why? We don't know, do we? Do you know that T. Boone Pickens set out to develop a bunch of really big wind farms? Do you know what he was going to do with that electricity off peak? Make hydrogen. You know that Daimler-Benz is going to have a hydrogen fuel cell car on the market in 2015. They're going to store that excess site-generated electricity in the form of hydrogen. They're going to take it over to the transportation industry. It's happening. That's the European model.
He shut down his wind farms.
Yeah, he did.
But he still has the water rights as
Yeah,
wind
still.
choices.
Yep. Yep. Lots of other people stepped in and made the wind. He didn't have to, did he? Well, that probably saved him a ton of money. All right. So I'm thinking that maybe if we can just move those BTUs from the earth to the space, we don't have to convert it. We don't have to use a kilowatt to do something to that BTU. We don't have to burn an MCF to do something to that BTU. We simply move it. We can turn neighborhoods into geohoods using third-party financing, and we can create that energy internet. So, bottom line, we ought to probably be a part of that third industrial revolution, and we ought to start here at Oklahoma State University. All right? We need to understand what the European model is and what the U.S. model is and how to work within both of them. Because all of us are going to be a part of both those systems, in my opinion, Dean. All right? I'd like to get your School of Business here to help us write our playbook so that we can get words that everybody can understand. We don't have those. Ground source, what is it? If we can do that and not let the accountants in there because they're going to worry about, payback and return on investment and all that other stuff. How much is a ground heat exchanger going to be worth 10 years in the future? More. Its value increases over time, doesn't it? It's the only asset that's out there other than the land that you have that. The facility doesn't have it. The power plant doesn't have it. The gas fields don't have it. The ground heat exchanger does. We got a cat that's pretty good. We ought to be using it. All right. So we're going to discover or somehow create within that plan that business model allows us to take this third-party financing out and do it. Okay. So maybe the university could help us with that, which would also help your programs. The AE of Oklahoma is willing to help you set those up. We're in the middle of it. And I'd like to get some grants to demonstrate these neighborhoods. I don't know. I know some of you looked into those grants and said, we can't get up, blah, blah, blah. Well, the way you get grants is you go get them written for you. You don't supply or you don't respond to the grants that they're putting out. You go up there and you get with those people and have them write your grant. And we can do that at federal level. All right. We haven't asked that to happen yet. Then, as we roll this thing out, let's get somebody to start collecting big data. Energy Wise is already doing that. I bring them up, you know who they are. David, Neal. Not that they're the ones, but I know that they'll do it. Okay? See what this looks like, capture that information. Then want to engage a Google or somebody like a Google to explain the GeoHood's energy value to an energy internet from the big data, which is that second great electrification of the United States, because I'm proposing that we do the space conditioning through electricity. All right, kind of makes some sense, all right? And with that, we need to partner with a really sophisticated financier. Somebody that understands how to take a project, fund it, move it into the tax structure to let those guys take the tax credits, then move it over to pension funds for the long-term funding of those things. And guys, we can do all this stuff. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. All right. I'm on time. I'm out. Any questions? Heck. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.